Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of SBJ Live. I'm Dan Kaufman with Sports Business Journal. This is a peak moment for women's sports, the gravity of the 2024 WNBA season. Thank you so much for joining us. As people are coming into the virtual room here, I'm going to go over just a few logistical elements that I go over for every episode of SBJ Live, and then I will introduce our moderator and our panelists. So the logistics that I want everyone to think about are really interrelated. There are two things that are interrelated, and they all relate to your engagement and your interaction with us on this episode of SBJ Live. So the first one is there's a chat bubble on the bottom right-hand corner. Make sure that you introduce yourself in that chat bubble. Tell us who you are and what you do. And if you see people in the chat who you know, please feel free to message as well. And then right next to the chat bubble, there's a questions bubble. If you jump in there, that's where you're going to put your questions for the panelists here. Our moderator, Tom Friend, has a ton of great questions for everyone, but I know the audience members have great questions as well, and we want your questions. There's no specific Q&A period at the end. Throw your questions in there whenever they come into your head, and you can upvote questions that you like and that you want to make sure that we get to. I will jump back on about 10, 15 minutes in to see the audience questions that we have and to make sure that we get them to our panelists here. We'll go for 40, 45 minutes roughly, but if we've got a ton of questions from the audience, and we got a ton of engagement, and Tom has a ton of great questions, we may go for the full hour. All right. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This is a peak moment for women's sports, the gravity of the 2024 WNBA season. We have Greg Bibb. He is president, CEO, and managing partner at the Dallas Wings. Coley Edison, senior vice president and chief growth officer at the WNBA. And Morgan Shaw Parker, president and COO at the Atlanta Dream. Tom Friend with Sports Business Journal is our moderator. Tom, the floor is yours. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dan. What a great panel we have today, and what a great night last night, the WNBA. I could not miss it. I was riveted in front of my seat to watch it. I'm not lying. But I want to ask you guys, first of all, the panel, there were lines out the door 2.5 hours before that game. It wasn't your teams. You're not involved with it. But still, as part of this league, Coley, why don't you start? What were your impressions of last night?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for setting this up. This is so exciting, and we're happy to be here today. Last night I was a fan. I was just watching in awe as, the excitement inside of those arenas transcends through your television. And that's why it's so important that we focus on increasing attendance and we focus on building the fan base at the team level, because the energy in the arena is is what you feel at home when you're watching it. And so, listen, I think it was Caitlin's first game. And so I know she brought so many fans, and that was great. But what those fans saw when they came was amazing basketball. And that's the real drive behind what we do, and how the Caitlin Clark effect really works is that it's lifting us all up. They may have come because one player brought them there, but they're staying because of the talent that is on the court. And that's really the moment that we're in right now. So whether you watch, New York's game or Vegas's game or you saw the best talent, and we were really excited to share that with new viewers who have probably never been there before.
And that's a great point, because last year during the NCAA tournament, when there was such a huge audience, 50% of that audience roughly had never seen women's basketball or weren't regular women's basketball fans. And so what do? You have to take advantage of that. So Morgan, I'll go to you. As an executive in Atlanta, how are you approaching this season? What's the lead up to the season for you?
Well, I've got to say, we've been accustomed to sellout crowds for a couple of years now. We've been under new ownership. The Atlanta Dream has been under new ownership for the last 3 years. We had 8 sellouts the first year. We had 12 sellouts the second year. And then this year, we're hoping to sell out all 20. I know everybody in the WNBA is feeling that way. But, what we say, and I think the league says it best as well, is we're going to have more people coming in just to watch Caitlin. And I think it's amazing. We say, welcome to the W, and we educate them along the way. And at the end of the day, what I think you saw yesterday is the insane level of professional talent that is in the W and has always been in the W. If you saw what Connecticut did, they held Caitlin off pretty well. I think she'll adjust. I mean, she's obviously coming off a really great college season as well. So, the adjustment in the W you see every single year, but this is a really special draft class, and it's up to us to catch this momentum. But I think every team in the W and the league is very well poised to catch it and increase this momentum going forward.
Yeah, Greg, from your point of view, you've already had the Caitlin experience down in Dallas for the preseason game, and I know it was jammed, and you're going to see her twice more, I believe. So what was it like for you to experience that the first time?
Well, thank you first and foremost for having me join the panel today, and welcome to the 2024 WNBA season to everyone who's a part of it. For us, a preseason game is typically not a sellable event. We host preseason games for two purposes. One, on the basketball operations side, to help us make roster decisions, and two, on the business side, to give our game presentation staff the opportunity to have essentially a dress rehearsal before it counts. But once we saw the stars aligning in terms of Caitlin entering the draft and being chosen number one by Indiana, we decided to go on sale at the game. We waited until she was drafted so that we could market the game specifically around her. And our first overall number 5 pick, JC Sheldon. And, I think in hindsight, we probably could have been more aggressive in our pricing. But other than that, it was a fantastic experience. We sold out the game in like 15 minutes. We kept the game a member benefit. Our season ticket holders did not pay for their seats to that game. And the secondary market was, well into the 4 figures in terms of what seats were selling for. So it was an extraordinary experience. But I think it's important, too, and I think Morgan and Coley alluded to this a bit. We're having a moment, and Caitlin is a big driver of that moment and big believer in rising tide lifts all boats. But if our league had not been building incrementally since, I say, the 2020 Wubble season, I don't think the moment would be the same as it is. I think we have been preparing for this, and we've been growing, and this is just the accelerant we were looking for to take us more mainstream.
And great point, Greg, and that's what I want to get to, because you make a great point that this was building. So let's start first with the team executives here. How were you prepared for this moment? Morgan, you talked about the sellouts. You guys led the league in sellouts last year, right? So I just want to, what was it leading up to this that got you ready for the Caitlin Clark experience?
I think it's the large crowds, the people in Atlanta, and I can speak specifically to our market. We've got one of the smaller arenas, so let's just be clear, we all know that. But, there's a scarcity of demand when it comes to getting into Gateway Arena in Atlanta, and people saw that as a moment to really say, hey, I need to be a part of this. But, when we invest in fan experience, when we have set a stake in the ground to invest in these athletes, we're continuing to do that. And I think that it's really important that we even continue after this because, we're hitting the tipping point, but this is just the beginning.
Greg, for you, what you mentioned, the Wubble, explain why you feel like that was a breakthrough moment and maybe some other breakthrough moments. In my mind, you can go through, for instance, last year's NBA All-Star game with Sabrina, has that great shootout with Steph Curry. That was a build-up moment. There's so many moments, but what do you find?
Yeah. I think it's a convergence of a number of things. Certainly 2020, when we made the bold decision to move forward with our season and play it in the Wubble as one, I think everyone in the league, in particular the players, realized that we found a voice as a single one voice entity, and it really magnified and really put us on a stage when there wasn't a lot else happening in the world except to watch WNBA or NBA basketball. So it gave us this launching point. I think, the development of NBA 2K and the inclusion of the women in that video game has played a big part. The arrival of Kathy Engelbert as our commissioner was a huge moment for our league, and the people she's brought with her, like Coley, to help drive our business in a new way. And I think sports betting has played a huge part in this. We talk about Caitlin Clark and the new people she's bringing to the WNBA. I think sports betting is bringing a whole new audience to our sport, and then they're seeing the game and saying, you know what, this is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I'm going to bet on it, but I'm also going to become a fan of it, and I'm going to invest in it literally and figuratively.
And that's a great segue to what you bring up, because last night's game was the most wagered, I'm talking about the Caitlin Clark game, was the most wagered WNBA game in history. Coley, how do you guys handle that? This is a whole new thing happening here. What's your take on it?
Yeah, listen, I think what Greg and Morgan alluded to is that we have been prepared to meet this moment. We have been working, day and night, not for the past couple of weeks because we knew Caitlin was coming, but in the past couple of years to set this league up for success. As Kathy speaks about often, it was really important for us to build a financially stable model that supports the overall growth of the league, but ultimately supports the increase in the player experience, because Greg, Morgan, and I, we're all here for the same reason. And that is to deliver on our promise to these players to ultimately increase player compensation, player travel, all of these things that they are so worthy of. And so I think that goes back to our strategy. In 2022, we raised $75 million of outside capital, the only professional women's sports league to do something like that. And then what do we do with those dollars? We invest it back into our business. So everything from human capital to an increase in marketing spend and to being able to announce just last week that we will fund charter travel for the entire league for 2 years. I mean, we were not in a position to do this, and it didn't happen because the rookies joined a month ago. It happened because we have built this league up for growth and success over the past 4 years.
Totally agree, but let's not ignore, and I'm not trying to be devil's advocate, but I think this is the biggest rookie in any sport since LeBron James. I mean, this is, okay, the Connecticut Sun had not sold out a game since 2000, an opener since 2003, and it's 21 years. So how do you deal with this? She's a person, she's a human being, and the Fever are doing a great job of saying, hey, Caitlin's not a product. But around the league, you'd be silly not to monetize this, not to leverage this, not to help the league. So let's talk first about how you're handling individually in teams. Morgan, how are the Dream handling the upcoming, when she comes to town? What's your plan? How are you going to sell tickets? What's the dynamic pricing going to be? How do you handle it?
Well, Tom, I think you mentioned something obviously that I can't talk about fully yet, but we've seen a lot of WNBA teams move to bigger arenas. I can probably allude to the fact that we may or may not have an announcement coming soon, but you deal with it by meeting the demand. And I think what's been a really interesting conversation is, the prices are so high. Well, let's just hold on a minute and talk about the fundamentals of supply and demand, right? And I think it's really interesting because pro teams have been doing this for years. And I think if we don't meet the supply, if we don't meet the demand with our ticket pricing, then the money just goes to the brokers and they're getting rich off of an organization in a league that really needs to reinvest in the league. And I think Coley mentioned it beautifully. We have a phrase here in Atlanta that we say, we don't bet on women, we invest in women. And the long-term growth of this league is so important, but you're gonna see things that you haven't seen for women professional athletes in the past, like dynamic pricing, like going into bigger arenas. And there's a lot of things for the W, as we can all attest to, that we're experiencing first. So, as we work through this, you can say the NBA did the same thing within their 27th year, in their own right as well. But I'm excited to see what it brings. And I think we do have to capitalize on this momentum. And heck, if I've got 10,000 people, which I have 10,000 people on a waiting list right now, just to try to get those indie tickets, I'll take it. And that happened, I believe, 4 weeks ago. Our season tickets sold out. And again, we're one of the smaller arenas, but we love this momentum. We've got them on lock for whenever we do make an announcement to go somewhere bigger. And I'm excited. If we have 10,000 Caitlin fans coming in, once again, welcome to the W. I think you're going to be really excited to see the level of competition. And I think there are going to be plenty of fans that keep coming back. I think the floor is at a different level now than it ever has been for the W and for women's sports in general, frankly.
Yes. And Greg, you guys are an interesting model. You have chosen to stay at the College Park Center, on campus there, rather than maybe be tempted to go to American Airlines Center and have a bigger crowd. Tell me why. Tell me your strategy about what to do with the Indiana games. And obviously you play other big games, Chicago, Vegas. These are all these great teams coming in. But I'm just curious about that game.
Yeah, obviously if we had more seats, we're sold out. We play July 17th and September 1st, Indiana at home. Those games are both sold out. We certainly are leaving money on the table, but we are in year 9 at College Park Center on the campus of UTA. The building, the school, the city of Arlington have been fantastic partners since the day we arrived, long before people were talking about the WNBA like the people are talking about the WNBA today. And I just felt like it wouldn't have been the greatest thing to do as a partner to move those two games in particular. And then for us, on a little bit of a bigger picture scale, we are moving, not for this summer or the summer 25, but we're in the middle of an arena project with the city of Dallas. So it just felt really disruptive to pick up our season ticket base, many of who've had the same seats for 9 years now, have built communities around the seat holders adjacent to them, and move them twice this summer, knowing that in 2 summers, we're moving them permanently to a new building. So undoubtedly leaving money on the table, but taking a little bit of a longer term viewpoint on it and staying where we are.
Coley, as a league, what can you do to help teams or advise teams? And what's your take on how to leverage, again, she's a human being, we understand that, but there is a business side of this. What's your take? What's the league's take?
I think Caitlin is a catalyst for a lot of change that has needed to happen for a while. And so the league's advice to the teams is to be bold. Only the bold will win and everything must change. Those are Kathy Engelbert's words. But it rings true in everything that we're doing. This is a new era for the WNBA. Like Morgan said, the base is higher than it's ever been before. And yesterday's price is not today's price, is not tomorrow's price. And so we want our teams, because we're doing this at the league, to hold tight to what we believe are our convictions and the value of all of our assets. So that means the value of an on-court placement, the value of a jersey patch, but also, I look at it as the value of our media rights and the value of our corporate partnerships are no longer going to be justified by an old spreadsheet model that drastically undervalued women's sports. And so we're looking for partners who will invest with us and understand that this is a new day and age. Our value is just going to continue to rise.
And Dan, before you jump on here, I do want to say, I can tell all of you here, I've been reporting the NBA media rights negotiations as part of my job. And I can tell you that NBC, who's trying to bid, TNT, WBD still involved. There's Amazon and there's ESPN. Every one of them want the WNBA. It's a part of the deal. It's included in the NBA negotiations. The WNBA is a huge asset to those negotiations. So this is a real window into what's going on with this league. Dan, I want you to jump in here. But
yeah, great discussion. I've got a couple audience questions here that I want to make sure we get to. And the first one I think is a natural segue, and then there's a specific one for Greg. But let's go to the more general one from Dana Hunter. Dana's question is this: what are you seeing for fan demand for the luxury market? Will the league be moving to add additional product types for fan experiences?
Yes. Yeah, I can speak a little bit to what we're doing at the league level. So we recently introduced WNBA experiences around the WNBA draft, which was really awesome. We got to provide luxury experiences for our fans, and we still we were really conscious about what costs were for pricing tickets. And so we kept them, very reasonable, but we're looking forward to launching WNBA experiences again for All-Star. And so that just means we continue to invest in those live events, everything from WNBA Live presented by US Bank to the actual AT&T All-Star weekend and the game itself, building out what a Friday looks like, what a Thursday looks like. So yes, the league is investing in these experiences, being able to create bespoke opportunities for our loyal fans who have been with us for so long, and then also welcoming this new batch of fans to the W with the best experience possible.
And from the team level, I can chime in. Obviously with our arena, we've added loges and lofts and more Hollywood seating, trying really hard to pack as many people into Gateway Arena as we possibly can. So we've seen great sellout opportunities there for our seats. But, we've also done things in the market too. We just had a Hoop Fest with Xbox that was completely sold out. We had 5,000 people when we only announced it the day before. 5,000 people came out to that. So, when it comes to luxury experiences, we're upgrading the things like where to watch. We've got a new broadcast partner. We're upgrading the level of production, the camera angles. I think you'll see a lot of that happening across the league. And what do we need to do from a production perspective to rise to the level of this new viewership base? So there's a lot more to come. We've got new radio partners, things like that. But from a particular luxury product, we've got a lot in the arena. And it's obviously fan experience too. Gone are the days where people want to just come out and go to a game and go home. So we're looking at what does that holistic experience really look like? And also, what does it mean to be a W fan? I think one of the coolest things to talk about now is how do you shine a spotlight on these incredible women? Kudos to the league for the new Skims campaign. I actually love that there's debate over it, right? Like, how cool is that? It is so amazing to be a woman in this time with this convergence of lifestyle and sport and fashion and music. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface of what's possible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously last night, the videos of the women walking into entering the arena, Kelsey Plum and so forth, the outfits, everybody's talking about them. The NBA, you see some really wacko outfits, but these are better. But
I aspire to Kelsey Plum guns, by the way.
I do want to say the marketing side of this. Obviously, Greg's wings were really smart. Greg, as soon as the Fever won the lottery, he was already talking to the Fever about getting that preseason game, which was they hadn't drafted her yet. He was on that. And I was impressed by that. But I got to say, the Mercury were really bold. I mean, as soon as Gianna Taurasi made her comment about, Caitlin's going to be going against grown women, the rivalry started and they had this ad, the GOAT versus the Rook. What's your take on marketing this league, these games? How bold do you get? The Sun did something about bring the heat to the Fever. I mean, so what's your take on it, the marketing of this side of this? Greg, you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Coley mentioned it earlier, and it's Kathy's mantra for at least this year. We need to be bold. This is our moment in time to be aggressive, to capitalize on where we are as a league and as a business. And I think for us here in Dallas, one of the things that we really try to focus on, the WNBA stands for so many good things. The WNBA does so many good things as a business. Sometimes the fact that we're a for-profit enterprise somehow gets a little bit forgotten in the equation. So we talk about three things here. We talk about, and in no particular order because they really are interwoven, be profitable, win championships, and be a positive change maker in the community. And whatever your job here happens to be, you should be able to answer how what you do impacts at least one, if not all three of those things at any given time, because they really do feed off of one another.
Coley, what did you think of the Taurasi, the GOAT versus the Rook, and what's the league's take on how these things can be marketed? Obviously the rivalry, that game's going to be huge.
No, I mean, we love it. Tom, for the first time ever, the WNBA ran a TV ad campaign during the Final Four because we knew this moment was going to matter. And that entire ad campaign was around welcome to the W. And we didn't want to take it easy. And we did want to be a little edgy and bold by, you see Breanna Stewart eating her rookie O's and Arike was applying the no shade cream because, we are paying homage to our legends of the past, our current stars, and then we're really focused on embracing the future. And I think you have to have all three of those elements to really meet this moment. But yeah, I'd say our investment into an ad campaign during a time when we have never, ever had TVCs really just shows you how important this moment was. And if you think about it, and my husband said this to me last night as we're watching, he's like, weren't they just playing in college? Like, didn't she just win, whatever in the Final Four? And I'm like, that's the unique position of our league, right? It's 30 days from the moment you're drafted till you're on the court in a regular season game. So maintaining that momentum and being able to convert an NCAA fan into a WNBA fan has been top of mind for us for the last few years. And we feel like we're starting to make progress there.
Great point. And, the thing is with Morgan and Greg, these fans are here. Is the goal now to keep them here? I mean, because like Coley says, the NCAA tournament ends. Caitlin has a chance to take a breath and she's back on the court. She must be worn out. But the bottom line is that the momentum is here. How do you keep them? And who wants to take it? Morgan, maybe you start.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think for us, we've already seen that people come to the W, number one, for incredible basketball. The athleticism is there. We don't have to, talk too much about that because it's there and people understand that. But I think when people leave our arena, specifically in Atlanta, they come out of it and they go, oh my God, I had no idea. That was so much fun. And so I think it's just our responsibility that, yes, people come to games for different reasons, right? There are the folks that are focused on skills. There are the folks that are focused on the lifestyle aspect of it. And there are the people that just want to come see the culture of Atlanta or the culture of the W, and they want to get to know these players. And I think we're finding more and more and more that the people that come here are wanting to stay here. Now, whether they're long-term season ticket holders or not, we're going to get quite a few of them. Like I said, the floor is at a different level for the league now. Are we going to keep every single one of them? No, it's just like in any league, but I think they're going to be paying attention now. They're going to notice it. We've got media talking about it even more. And so I think we've finally broken through the threshold that it's taken to get women's sports into mainstream on a much more regular basis, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, it's more of an educational process than a selling process, and this is why I say that. There are currently, for this summer, 12 teams with a maximum of 12 roster spots, and most of us don't play with 12 because of the salary cap. We play with 11, but let's say it's 12. So that's 144 athletes. You think about how many people are on our planet, and 144 of them are good enough to play in this league. And then you think about what it costs as a consumer to be up close and personal and experiencing the best 144, fill in the blank, anything in the world, and what you should be willing to pay to have that experience. And everyone's average ticket price is different, but let's just say it's $50 or $60 as an average ticket price. Wouldn't you want to spend gladly $50 or $60 to be up and close and personal with the best 144 of anyone on the planet doing anything? And that's literally what our league is. This is the best women's basketball league and the hardest league to play in of any professional sports league in the world. So the value proposition is so far off the chart. Before you get to any of the other ancillary stuff, you just talk about the basketball, that it's not a selling proposition, it's an education proposition. And I think that, more than anything, has been the benefit of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and the new crop of WNBA players. They've opened the door for us to educate Joe Public about the value proposition of WNBA basketball.
Coley, I want your take on the resale situation. In Vegas, some seats are going for $57,000 courtside for that one game they played on the smaller venue. That's insane. That's on Vivid Seats. It's kind of insane to me, but that's the market. From a league perspective, what's your take on it?
Yeah, listen, the market is going to drive the demand, and, there is a finite amount of supply. And so while we want to ensure that our teams are maximizing the value, we understand that a secondary marketplace is very important in, the entire professional sports ecosystem. So while we've dealt with our frustrations, and I think first and foremost, we want access for our fans. So that's where, you start to feel the frustration, because we want our fans, if they want to buy tickets, to be able to buy tickets, while still acknowledging that there is a value to these tickets. And I just wanted to Greg's point before about access and up close and personal. Our players are very different than other professional athletes in that they will stay at that arena and sign every autograph and hug every child and do every meet and greet. They are the most accessible professional athletes with the strongest voice, purpose-driven voices that actually make a difference. And so, yes, they are amazing on the court, but they have there's 144 stories on the court and 144 stories off the court. And I think, we'd be remiss not to mention that these players are just amazing women, and they are just a microcosm of women in society and women in the workforce that we need to continue to support and uplift and empower.
Tom, I want to jump in if I can, because we've got Bridget Gannon with a great question that's got 3 upvotes. So let's make sure we get to it. How are the league and teams capitalizing on this moment in women's basketball to grow youth basketball development and young fan engagement?
So I can speak a little bit about what we're doing at the league level. So we have our Changemaker platform. So Changemakers are a collective of purpose-driven organizations, and we've aligned to really build a mission around empowering women and underrepresented groups through sport. And so this year, the Changemakers are sponsoring Voice in Sports, which is a digital platform for digital mentorship. And we've set out to mentor 50,000 girls over the course of the next 12 months. And those mentors are the athletes from our teams. So there's one player from each team who is providing one-on-one mentoring services, group mentoring services. And these are really things that were just not available, I'm sure, when I was growing up as an athlete, to be able to hear from a pro WNBA player about how to maintain a healthy lifestyle, how to deal with body image issues, how to deal with psychological issues. And so one way that we are investing in youth sports is through this Changemaker WNBA Viz sponsorship.
I love that you mentioned that, Coley, because Steph Strack, who's leading Viz, is an absolute visionary. Haley Jones on our team is one of the Viz mentors. And the website that these young girls have access to deal with things that they are struggling with, deal with things that from the highest level in the athletic world for young girls, these are things that we need to talk about from a skill perspective to a mental perspective to a lifestyle perspective. So, when you're supporting female athletes at the youngest level or the highest level, it's different than the way you support the men's game and male athletes. I think it's really important to understand that. But, I also think that we're investing with them in so many other ways too. One of the cool things that we've done with our partner Microsoft is obviously everybody knows that, girls fall off from athletics, or tend to fall off from athletics unless they're highly skilled at around age 13, so middle school. What's interesting, and Microsoft had already had this research, they're falling off from STEM activities at or around age 13. Makes sense. So we combined the two of those, and we're investing in creating programs where you're learning basketball through science, engineering, technology, and math. And then you're coming out on the court and you're actually practicing what you do. So we're doing things to invest in the highly skilled, but we're also doing things to invest in girls that just need to participate in team sports because of all the amazing things that they can learn from it. And I love the article that came out, and Coley, Greg, you guys might remember who it came from. It might have been Deloitte, but just recently it was reaffirmed again that 95% of females in C-suite positions attribute a lot of their success to participation in sport. So whether it's at the skill level or whether it's at the access level, we're really working to make sure that we're, amplifying those opportunities too.
Yeah, I think Deloitte says it best when they say, girls who play become women who lead.
Great. Well said. Greg, taking it from a partner standpoint, how has this helped? She brought up partners like Microsoft. How has this surge sort of helped you there, invigorated the partnership side, the sponsorship side? What are you seeing in Dallas?
I mean, pretty simple and straightforward. More conversations with regional and national brands, and fewer calls to get to that conversation than in the past. And dare I say some inbound calls about partnering with our teams, which is, for someone who's been around since 2007, a new concept. So it's been great. And again, it all starts at the league level, and what Kathy and Coley have been able to do in terms of turning up the interest at a corporate level. And we feel that kind of trickle down to us at the team level. So there have been countless number of partnership announcements across the league that have been big, bold deals with big numbers attached and big names attached. And, we're trying to dip our toe in that water too. I think our most recent example, well, we have two. Yesterday, we announced a deal with Lyft. And about 2 weeks ago, we announced the deal with Wendy's. Those are two national brands that, coming into this season, we had never even spoken to, yet alone had a partnership with. So exciting times on the corporate side too.
I want to talk. Go ahead, Morgan.
I think what you see as well, real quick, just to piggyback off what Greg said, you'll see an incredible level of creativity around these partners. partnerships. These are not just your run-of-the-mill partnerships that have LED signage and activation and community dollars. The league thinks differently. Case in point, and I know, Greg, you brought up the Wubble and how we had a unified voice. There's so much that our organizations, our teams and the league can do. And, Coley and her team have done an absolutely incredible job proving out the value of what we've got and what we're sitting on. And, I've got to give a shout out to Wasserman and the collective. Gone are the days where, as Coley mentioned, it's just an Excel sheet sponsorship deal. And, Greg, you guys announced one with your NBA team as well that was incredibly thoughtful and an impactful thing that's going to be, giving back to your market for years to come. And it really started to make even NBA teams think, I didn't consider doing a partnership like that. But that's where I think, to Coley's point as well, the league is really flexible and accessible to be able to come up with some of these unique partnership arrangements.
Well, a couple of things I want to touch on here. One is your strategies around tickets again. Some teams are doing a 5-game bundle, and the fever is in that 5 games. Some don't have the fever in their bundles. But my point is that a way for ticket selling to kind of get people back more than once, more than the Caitlin Clark game? Get them, tell me some of the strategies that maybe you guys can come up with as teams.
Greg, you want to jump in there? You want me to?
Yeah. I can.
I think a short answer is yes.
Yeah,
it is a ticket strategy.
Yes. You look to take your strongest games and perhaps package them with your less desirable. I won't say undesirable because we don't have undesirable games anymore.
Right.
But your less desirable games, and at least here in Dallas, we kind of grade our games out. A C game, a B game, an A game, an A+ game, and then there's the A+++, i.e. the Caitlin Clark games. And you find ways to partner games to drive the overall average ticket price and ultimately the overall revenue.
This is the sports writer in me, the human interest writer.
And I'll just add too. I'm always going to add on real quick. But that's a normal thing in the in the NBA. That's not new. I think, we've got rookie packages and we've got packages that are, 3-game packages, 5-game packages. I think you're just seeing it more because the W is a topic of conversation.
I want to ask each of you for your favorite story surrounding Caitlin Clark entering the league. I was talking to the Mystics and they told me that there was a family coming from Belgium that wanted to time their trip to DC with the Caitlin Clark game in June. So everybody has a story. I'd love to hear your favorite. I know, Coley, you told me a story about your sister. Who's not a big fan, who mentioned about, was Caitlin playing last year? So tell me your favorite stories, regarding this.
You're gonna hate me, but I have to just say this is I love Caitlin and we are so excited about everything she's doing for the league. But the story is bigger than Caitlin. This is a generational class coming in, and everybody from Angel Reese, Rakia Jackson, Cameron Briggs, JC Sheldon. I mean, the list goes on and on. Camila Cardozo, who's out with an injury, but this is an entire class that is changing the game for us. And I want to, I think this is just a light bulb that turned on for me, was that these women grew up watching the WNBA. So either they were toddlers or babies or not even born yet in 1997 when the league launched. So they've never lived in a world where they didn't have the best women athletes as their role models, the Maya Moores, the Cheryl Swoops, Rebecca Lobos. They had them to look up to. And I think that is why we are where we are. And so imagine just the future when the girls who are toddlers and little kids and elementary schoolers right now, are looking up to them. And I will say one Caitlin Clark story that I read was a PE teacher had one of her, girl students taking a 3-pointer and yelled, "Caitlin Clark," instead of Steph Curry. And yeah. I love that.
And let me add to that. I think Coley makes a great point. Oftentimes the WNBA is compared to Major 4, Major 5 men's sports, but it's not an apples to apples comparison. We are a baby league. We are, in my opinion, just exiting first generational fandom and entering second generational fandom. And to Coley's point, we are just getting young adults who grew up not knowing a world without WNBA basketball. So it takes leagues generations to gain that foothold so that you have fans who grew up with the game and are literally invested in it. And if you don't believe me, look at MLS in the late 90s and look at MLS today. So that's one. And then two, the most exciting thing about this draft class, which I think may be our best draft class ever, is that next year I think the draft class could be better than this year. And the one after that looks great. And the one after that looks great. And if you watch the McDonald's All-American High School game, that's phenomenal. So our product is only going to continue to get better as we move forward.
You beat me to my conclusion, but go ahead. I was going to bring that up. Morgan, go ahead. What's your favorite story? Anything?
I'm just going to drop the mic for Coley and Greg. I'm echoing exactly what they're saying. You know, Caleb's got amazing stories. I think ask me in a month and I'll have 100 more amazing stories. But I will say my kids asked me, and I have two little boys, 5 and 8. And my oldest said, I said, are those, what shoes are you wearing today? Because he didn't know whose they were. And I think they were Scottie Pippen shoes. And he goes, no, Mom, they're Ryan Howard shoes. And I'm like, absolutely. The W conversation is mainstream now, and I am here for all of it. It's amazing.
No, I understand. I mean, Caitlin's driving it, but there's a lot. These players are great. I can't wait to watch tonight Cameron Brink's debut. It's going to be very interesting all around the league all year. Angel Reese's debut. It's going to be huge. I'm going to end it on this. Dan, I don't know if you have any more questions from the audience. Do you?
There's a great question from the audience, Tom, but it might steal your thunder on like an ending thing. So I'll just preview it, and then you can decide whether you want to take your question or the audience question.
It's fine.
The question's from Eric Azaris. Eric says, fast forward to 2027. Ideally, what do you want the league to look like in 3 years?
That was my last question. Good job. You think alike. Go ahead. What's the league going to be like in 5 years? What do you envision?
Coley.
Yeah.
Coley.
I mean, I can tell you this because Kathy says it. By that time, we will be at 16 teams at least, maybe 2028. But we intend to continue to expand. We want to focus on globalizing this game. We have a huge fan base that exists in LATAM. We're looking at Europe. We know China. So there's globalization, there's expansion. And I think ultimately we want to continue to make strides toward equity and parity for our athletes. So whether that comes through, what this next media rights deal looks like, through the next CBA, ultimately, I want to be in a place where our athletes can enjoy the lifestyle that they deserve because the WNBA is well funded through corporate partnerships and media rights. And that ultimately every single seat has a button in it for every single game of our very, very exciting summer.
And I'll go a little more granular than that. I echo all that Coley said, and I think we're in really, really good hands with those that are leading on the league side and those that are leading every team. But I'll go more granular, and I'll say I long for the day when dads aren't just saying, I'm going to bring my daughter to go and see the W. I'm going to bring my son to go and see the W. That's what I want, and we're starting to see that, and it is absolutely amazing.
Well, yes to all of it, plus soaring team valuations.
Yeah, and I got to say, to Morgan's point, last night there were Patriots football players at that game in Connecticut. There's, Steph Curry. I guarantee you, next year when the Valkyries come into business, I'm sure he'll be at the game courtside. I got to say, I'm going to end it on this note. We get to do this all over again next year with Paige Buchers, because there's going to be all kinds of stuff going on with Paige next year. And after that, Juju. So you know what's coming. To sum it up, your excitement level is what on the meter there? What's your excitement level for the future?
Our excitement level is at an all-time high. The future of the WNBA could not be brighter. And, we have amazing leaders at the team level like Greg and Morgan, who I am happy to share this panel with today, and they're leading the way. So, nothing can stop us now.
Man, there's no better soundbite than that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a scale for it.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Tom, I'll jump in here. Coley, Greg, Morgan, we could not do this without you, and we really appreciate your time, and best of luck for this season and beyond. Tom, great work wrapping it all together. To the audience, thank you so much for joining us. We're back next week with another episode, same time, same place. That one is Global Partnerships, a strategic approach to brands working in combat sports with the PFL. We hope to see you for that as well. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.